Today's tutorial will show you how to create a Christmas tree out of Sculpey by creating 3 pinch pots. You can use air dry clay, kiln fired clay, Sculpey, or anything you can get your hands on, even Play-Doh. If you love learning about art, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a weekly tutorial. I found some Sculpey in my supply closet at school, and I thought, let me play around with some ideas for early finishers in my classes before Christmas break. I actually stole this idea for one of my students, so shout out to Jesslyn, who made the most beautiful 3 pinch pot Christmas tree during her free time in class, and I just had to copy her and see if I could make one just as good. Spoiler alert, Jesslyn, you win. Your Christmas tree is way more beautiful than mine. First step is to knead your Sculpey, wedging it and working it with your hands or on a clean tabletop surface. Sculpey is polymer clay, so the more you work with it, the more your hands and the heat from your hands warm it up and make it more plastic and easy to work with. This is the opposite if you're using a regular kiln-fired clay, Play-Doh, or even some self-hardening air-dry clays that you can buy at Michael's or online. Next, you will make a pinch pot once your clay is easier to work with. Take your thumb and you're going to pinch, and turn all the way around to create a bowl-like shape. Now I want this to look like a tree, so I'm using my fingers to pull the bowl into a point at the top. And this looks like a wizard hat, a Hershey kiss, or if you're one of my students, maybe the poop emoji. And you're gonna repeat these steps 3 times to create tiers or layers for your tree. I've done this twice now, and I have learned that smoothing it out before moving on is key. So you can see my fingerprints are all over it, and I want mine to have a smoother vibe to it. Now, smooth is only one texture. You could use a toothpick or a variety of clay tools to carve in a tree-like texture or branches, but I'm gonna try and keep mine pretty simple for now. Smoothing does take time, so make sure that you're kind of moving the pinch pot in your hand and smoothing up towards the top or down towards the bottom to create an even texture. I'm going to repeat my steps 2 more times to create the layers for my tree. So now that I have 3 pinch pots that I have smoothed for the most part, I did make one bigger, one kind of medium size, and one smaller. So I am kind of playing around with the tree getting bigger, or smaller at the top, bigger as it goes down. If you've ever put together an artificial Christmas tree where you have to find each piece, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And now that I have my 3 basic pieces, I'm going to attach them all together. If you're using a traditional clay or even an air dry clay that's not Play-Doh or Sculpey, you will need to score, slip, and blend. However, I am using Sculpey, and so I'm just gonna take a toothpick and I'm just gonna kind of seam together some of my pieces, and I'll show you what that means. You could bake this in the oven separately and hot glue it together, but I don't see the point in not trying to attach it while I have it. So you can see I've stacked my pieces and I'm smoothing it out because I'm a perfectionist. And I'm gonna take this toothpick and score the edges and smush and press into each piece. Again, if you're using any other type of clay, even air dry, anything other than Sculpey or Play-Doh, you would wanna score, slip, and blend. But this, I'm just kind of pressing each piece into each other. Now, my student Jesslyn, who made the better Christmas tree than me, she created a little base or what does a tree have? A trunk, there we go. She created a trunk. I'm just gonna have mine sit on the tabletop. I'm using a toothpick here to create some texture lines because I'm just curious to see, because I haven't played with Sculpey all that much, how well does Sculpey take texture in detail? It does it pretty well. I read in the directions that you can bake it and then carve in some more, so I'm gonna experiment with that as well. Another option, you could make a star and attach it to the top of your tree. You could carve in ornaments. You could make little ornaments and then press them into your Sculpey or your clay. You could make a bird sitting on the tree, or you could just make it very basic and smooth and then paint it. The beauty of this is there's so many surface options as far as textures and decorations. If you want to make a trunk, here's what I meant by that. I'm making a little coil, so basically like a little cylinder, and if you've ever played with Play-Doh before, this should look really familiar. I did not end up using this little trunk that I made because I did not attach it. It was kind of an experiment, and I just baked it separately and said, well, what happens if I just glue this together? So if you want to make a trunk, go for it. I just let mine kind of sit on the tabletop as if the branches were so long they touched the ground. Either option is fine. It depends on your personal preference. You're finished creating your pieces, you have to bake Sculpey. So if you're using any other type of clay, disregard this information. Preheat an oven to 275 degrees or 103 degrees Celsius, and you need to bake it 15 to 30 minutes depending on how thick it is. So the website says for each 1/4 inch thickness, bake it for about 15 minutes. You don't want to over bake it because then it can dry out and crack, but if you under bake it, it won't be cured. When you take it out of the oven, it's gonna feel kind of soft and you're gonna think you did it wrong. You didn't, it just has to cure, and once it dries and once it cools off, it will be as hard as a rock. My tree has been baked and cured and it's hard as a rock, so I'm taking a needle tool and seeing how easy it is to carve into it. Not very. So my advice to you is to use the tools and have it all the way finished before you put it in the oven for baking. So here's my finished piece, and here's my student's who has not been baked yet. And as you can see, hers is so much more elegant and beautiful. Mine's a little bit squatty, but that's okay. I'm going to paint this and make it a festive tree. Acrylic paint works best, and I had this vision of this white tree with silver on it, kind of like a classy, elegant Christmas tree. Spoiler alert, it really did not look great. So here's me painting it white with acrylic. I should have just painted it green, just because, I mean, it depends on what you want it to look like. You could make it gold, you could make it neon orange. It doesn't have to look like a real tree, but that was kind of my goal. So I'm gonna zoom ahead because the white paint, in my opinion, with silver was a little bit of a fail. So I'll talk about how I made it more to my standards. So after hating the silver and white, I went back with a really yellow-green, and before the white paint dried completely, I dabbed on with my brush some of that light green so the white would show through. Then I went back and layered some dark green so it wasn't just a flat color. So paint it to your taste, whether it's solid white, solid gold, light green, dark green, whatever you think looks the best based on your personal goals. Finally, I'm doing small dots of red and gold to make it look like a Christmas tree. And this is going to be used at my house for a Christmas decoration. Again, it doesn't have to be Christmas themed, it could just be a beautiful tree. And I'm still a little bit jealous of my student's beautiful white tree. So spray painting it white and just keeping it simple, that would have been a really great choice too. So there she is, all finished, done, painted and cured, a Sculpey tree just in time for Christmas. Thank you so much for sticking around and making art with me, and if you're interested in more clay tutorials, check these out. Also, find me on Instagram at thatartteacher_Machado and my website, thatartteacher.com, for free full-length lesson plans and student examples.